Prince Harry's life in California is being framed by certain corners of the media as some kind of royal exile. But let's get something straight from the jump. What we are actually witnessing is a man finally stepping into the most meaningful role of his life, not as a prince, not as a press punching bag, but as a father. And frankly, that's the part of the story that terrifies the critics the most. Because a grounded, emotionally present Harry doesn't fit their favourite narrative of a broken spare, wandering aimlessly through Montecito, clutching a green juice. What we are seeing instead is a man who has consciously chosen peace over palace drama, parenting over protocol and purpose over performance. According to insiders close to Us Weekly, Harry is now content in California, living in what they call a private world. And that phrase is doing a lot of heavy lifting, because what it really means is that Harry is no longer living inside a gold-plated fishbowl where every facial expression is dissected by tabloids and every breath is monitored by people who think they own him. He was born into a system that treated him like a supporting character in someone else's story. But now he's finally writing his own script, and spoiler alert, it includes school drop-offs, bedtime stories, and a whole lot of hands-on parenting. And yes, the same reports admit that Harry has struggled with what they describe as crippling social anxiety. But let's pause for a moment and ask the most obvious question that the royal rota always avoids. What exactly did you expect after decades of being stalked, scrutinized, mocked and emotionally battered by the press? If you were raised in a world where your trauma was treated like entertainment and your pain was monetized for clicks, you'd probably want to keep a low profile too. Yet, instead of compassion, what do some commentators do? They spin it into weakness, as though prioritizing mental health is somehow less noble than smiling politely while being emotionally shredded. Meanwhile, Meghan is described as the breadwinner, and once again that word is tossed around like it's some kind of insult rather than a testament to how powerfully she has built a post-royal career. The truth is that their partnership is exactly what modern relationships are supposed to look like. One person brings in more money, while the other anchors the household emotionally and practically. That's not a crisis. That's teamwork. Harry, being a present father while Meghan builds an empire, is not a role reversal. It's a power couple operating at full capacity. But apparently, when a woman succeeds and a man parents, some people's brains short-circuit like a Windows 95 computer. The same sources like to point out that Harry was once a man of structure, duty and routine as an army officer, and that life in Montecito is different. Well, yes, that's kind of the point. Harry didn't leave the UK because he wanted chaos. He left because he wanted control over his own life. He didn't abandon structure. He replaced an outdated, emotionally punishing one with something healthier. These days, his schedule revolves around Archie and Lilibet, not ribbon cuttings and staged smiles. And if that's what unsettled looks like, then most parents would happily sign up. And here's the part that critics don't like to talk about. Harry is happier now. Not performatively happy, not royal duty happy, but genuinely content. The insider even admitted that despite the challenges, he feels more like himself in California. That's not a red flag, that's a green one. A man who spent his entire childhood being photographed through car windows while grieving his mother now gets to walk his kids to school without a swarm of cameras. That alone is priceless. But somehow the tabloids spin that as isolation instead of protection. Of course, they also try to stir up panic about Archie and Lilibet being 6th and 7th in line to the throne, as though that ranking should dictate how they live their childhoods. Let's be serious. Those children are not being raised to be royal mascots. They're being raised to be emotionally healthy, confident and safe. If that means growing up in California instead of behind palace gates, then that is a blessing, not a loss. And honestly, what kind of childhood would you prefer? One with sunshine, freedom and privacy, or one where your every move is fodder for tabloids with grudges? Harry's social anxiety, which he has openly struggled with, doesn't make him weak, it makes him honest. And it makes his choice to prioritise home life even more powerful. Instead of forcing himself into public spaces just to satisfy critics, he has chosen to invest that energy into being a dad. He's there for the little moments, the scraped knees, the giggles, the bedtime questions that only a parent ever hears. That's not retreating from the world, that's choosing what actually matters. And let's not ignore the elephant in the room. If Harry were spending all his time at celebrity parties instead of with his kids, the same critics would be calling him irresponsible. But because he's home being a present father, suddenly he's uneasy and lost. You really can't win with people who are invested in your misery. The goalposts move every time Harry dares to look peaceful. What makes this story even richer is the contrast between Harry and Meghan's energy in California. Meghan thrives in social, professional and creative spaces, while Harry prefers the quieter rhythm of home life. That's not imbalance, that's balance. That's two people playing to their strengths. Meghan is out there building, connecting, producing and influencing, while Harry is grounding their household. It's a partnership that works, which is precisely why it makes certain commentators uncomfortable. And let's be honest, there's something quietly revolutionary about a royal man choosing fatherhood over performative power. Harry could be doing endless speaking tours, corporate photo ops, and forced networking. Instead, he's choosing to be the dad who knows his kids' favourite snacks and bedtime routines. That's not a fall from grace, that's growth. So while critics sit around diagnosing Harry from their laptops and pretending concern for his well-being, the reality is much simpler and much brighter. Harry has found a life where he is safe, loved and present. He is no longer trapped in a system that required him to smile through pain. He is no longer living for optics. He is living for his children. And honestly, that's the most royal thing of all. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Prince Harry's new chapter and the truth behind the headlines, make sure you support the Sussex Insights by hitting that subscribe button. This channel exists to cut through the noise, expose the double standards, and tell the real story of Harry and Meghan with honesty, humour and heart. Stay tuned, stay curious, and stay subscribed, because the truth always shines brighter when we share it together.